Hey, a very warm welcome. So, in this generative AI interview preparation session of part four, we will be dealing with the question: how do you create an empty class in Python? Okay. So, as you can see, I had answered a very simple answer where we created a class and I used pass and it was used with indentation, but somehow it is represented like this here. So this is a way to create an empty class. But an ideal answer for an interview would be something where we can say that an empty class is created with the class keyword and a pass statement. Okay, so these are the two essential parts of creating an empty class in Python. Okay, because if you just create the class name, and you do nothing inside that particular class, then it is going to show us an indentation error, because Python generally asks that when you created a class, what are you going to have in it? Okay, are you going to have methods, functions, variables, logics? What all you're going to have in it? So if we want to keep things empty, we can say that I want to have pass. I don't want to have anything in it, and that we can define with a pass keyword. Okay, so so now let's say this is the answer, but I'm going to give you a quick brief of that, and then we will have a very basic implementation, okay, in pass. So let me just explain you with a very nice image which we have here. So what exactly is empty class in Python? Okay. So as you can see, an empty class is like an empty box which is ready to be used later. Okay. So we will have this discussion in around 5 steps, 6 steps, 7 steps to be true. Uh, and what are we going to have it from the start? Let's have a look. So first, we are going to discuss what is an empty class. Okay. So basically, if you consider an empty class is like an empty box, okay? And this empty class is, could be a category or could be something, could be a feature which we are going to add later in the program. So whenever we have to create an empty box, okay, we create an empty class, for example, in Python. So an empty class does not have any attributes or methods yet, and we use the pass statement as a placeholder. Okay, so we want to put something in it, even though it is empty, and you can quickly write pass statement. So you can, for the syntax, you can use class syntax. You can define the name of the class, and then you can create the scope operator, and then with indentation you can use this keyword pass, which does nothing for now. Okay, and as you already know that Python requires an indented block after class, and pass tells Python that block is intentionally empty. Okay, so let's just implement that. We can do that implementation in Thorny. Okay, so I'm going to create a new class. Let's save that as, okay, you're going to have class, let's say my class. Okay, and you can have pass. So this is the basic implementation of a class in Python. Okay, now if we see, let's take a basic example. So now here what you have is you created a class, and still you can use an object of this empty class. Okay, so what am I going to do? I'm going to use this class. I'm going to use this my class, and I'm going to save that into an object. Okay, so let's run it. Let me first save it. Let's call it as basic class, or let's call it as empty class. Empty class. Okay, now I'm going to run it. Stop for a minute. Let's run it. Now you can see that we have created a class. Okay, and we have created one object. So we got these two things. One is the main class which we created, and second, an object has been created for the class, and that has been saved into this object obj. Okay, now what next you can do is, once we have got this object created, we can use this object generally. So similarly, let's say if you just would want to print that object for the sake of this demonstration, let's run it. And here you can see that you get the content that we have uh, this class, my class, and we have created an object of this my class, which is this obj, and which is stored at this memory location. Okay, I can see that the memory location is here, 2728 to be 953F0. Okay, in the heap. On our machine, there is a heap. On that heap, we got that object allocated, and that heap ID is associated with this variable which we created. Now, so one of the best part is, so now what happened? So basically, we got an empty class created. We can still create objects of this class, and the objects can be used like any other objects. We can add values to those objects. In fact, the output of an empty class would display something like this: main.myClass object at a memory location. Okay, so we got that output printed. So the next part is, where do we use these empty classes? Okay, and this is an important feature. So basically, we use a placeholder. Whenever we plan to add things later during development, there we use empty classes. Whenever we have to use a marker class, where we used to identify a type or category of objects, there we use it. Whenever we want to have base for extension, wherein we can use a base class and then we would want to extend new features later, there we can use empty classes. Okay. Now, with respect to this interview, you can quickly see that when you use class my class without any element in it and without any indented block, it is going to give you an indentation error. But the correct way is use class keyword, give the name of the class, use your scope operator, and then define pass. Okay, and pass is necessary for defining an empty class. And we can have an advanced example where we can, once even we have created an empty class object, we can put features and names to that. We can add data to those objects later. Okay, so let's have an example. So now, even if we have my class, we can use obj, let's say name, and I'm going to enter Devanshu, and I'm going to has obj dot, let's say age. So I'm going to use 35, and I'm going to print obj dot name and object dot age. Okay, and we're going to run it. So now when you run it, you can see that you have got this output, Devanshu and 35. Okay, now so you got that class in the memory. You can quickly see here we've got that object, and within that object we have assigned these two attribute values, and we can use these attribute values even though the class was empty. So that is how empty classes are implemented, and we can still use objects, and we can add data to those objects. So an empty class is created using the class keyword and a pass statement. It is simple but very powerful tool in Python. Thank you so much for watching.